King Farouk of Egypt, whose death at the age of 68 the world now mourns, succeeded his brother as Sultan in 1917 and was proclaimed king in 1922 when his country was granted independence. Throughout a troubled reign, he met difficulties and threats with the courage of his race. But when comparative tranquility eased his later years, his health gave way. King Farouk is succeeded by his only son, Prince Farouk, who has recently been completing his education in England.
A solemn young man, King Farouk of Egypt, returns to his country where the sudden passing of his father has placed him at the age of 16 in a position of unenviable responsibility. At Marseilles he boards the British ship Viceroy of India, which will take him for a brief stay to Cairo before he returns to England for a continuance of his education. He has a fine presence, and we may hope that he inherits his father's political acumen. While he is yet on his way home, the body of King Fuad is borne through the streets of Cairo.
Egypt's young king has reached the age of 18, and according to the law of his country has come of age. So now he drives through seething streets beneath a burning Egyptian sun, while his mother watches, on his way to meet his parliament. Inside the great hall, King Farouk is received by the Prime Minister Nahas Pasha, by the senators and diplomats, most of them wearing the brilliant sashes of the Order of the Nile, and by the diplomatic corps, headed by British Minister Sir Miles Lampson.
In the land of dynasties, the oldest country in the world, a royal marriage is made, Egypt, and to Cairo flock tens of thousands of jubilant Egyptians, men from the Upper Nile as well as its lower reaches, eager to take part in the royal day of rejoicing. The streets are thronged and festivities abound, but to the ceremony itself few are privy, for a royal marriage in Egypt is by Muslim contract. Sheikh El-Merahi arrives to act as judge when the king signs privately his contract with the father of his bride. Now the members of the royal family descend the steps of the palace, each carrying a box of chocolates, gifts always bestowed at a marriage, and sign that a contract is sealed. A salute of 101 guns carries the tidings to Cairo and beyond, and from the Kube Palace, decorated cars begin a triumphal progress. State troops parade with due ceremonial through the palace grounds, headed by the pipes which have been used in Egypt for 2,000 years. So far it has been a wedding without a bride, but at last she arrives at 5 o'clock in the evening, moving into her husband's house according to Muslim rite. She is robed in a wedding dress very like a Christian bride, and little bridesmaids and page attend her with the same nervousness as in a Christian ceremony. And so a king takes a queen into his palace, King Farouk and Queen Farida, and they mount the steps to the life of royal dignity and felicity which lies ahead of them.
Cairo is the scene of a strange mingling of the ancient and the modern, as great desert sheiks parade in the ceremonial that celebrates the marriage of their king, Farouk I. Prancing Arab horses add color to the event. High military officials and cabinet members are present at El Hazar Mosque when the 17-year-old Muslim king arrives to pray before signing the marriage contract at which the bride is not present. The night of the ceremony, Cairo is a blaze of light as 2 million persons in the city echo, "God save the King." In the famous gardens of the Koba Palace, after the brideless wedding, the king awaits the arrival of 16-year-old Queen Farida. Crowds jam rooftops for a glimpse of their king and his new queen. The Paris gown she wears as she meets her husband for the first time since their marriage is a model priced at $3,000. For the first time since Cleopatra, an independent Egypt is ruled by one of its own people. The youthful rulers are among the richest monarchs in the world, and in their hands rest the destinies of 16 million souls.
American destroyer comes alongside a cruiser in Great Bitter Lake on the Suez Canal in Egypt. It brings Ibn Saud, king of the 5 million people of Saudi Arabia, to a conference with President Roosevelt, stopping off here on his return from the Crimea conference. The destroyer has been decked out with rare carpets for the monarch. This 800-mile trip marks the first time that King Ibn Saud has ever left his native land. Full honors for a third royal visitor, Egypt's King Farouk, whom President Roosevelt had visited on his previous journey here for the Cairo conference. King of the great and strategic territory from which Nazi armies were thrown far back 3 years ago, Farouk's Egyptian government made a formal declaration of war on the Axis on February 26. In extraordinarily intimate pictures, King Farouk and President Roosevelt talk over wartime and post-war problems. With the conclusion of these meetings with 3 important heads of states, Mr. Roosevelt nears the end of his historic 14,000-mile trip.
في صباح يوم 27 مايو وصل إلى مطار بنفيلد حضرة صاحب السمو الملكي الأمير سعود ولي عهد المملكة العربية السعودية على متن طائرة خاصة، وقد استقبل سموه في المطار جمهور كبير من المستقبلين يتقدمهم سعادة الفريق وبعد الظهر شرف حضرة صاحب الجلالة الملك فاروق الأول المطار بلبيس ليستقبل حضرة صاحب الجلالة الملك عبد الله ملك شرق الأردن وحضرة صاحب السمو الملكي الأمير عبد الإله الوصي على عرش العراق. لما نزل الضيفان العظيمان إلى أرض المطار حياهم جلالة الملك تحية حارة وهنأهما بسلامة الوصول. وقد شهد الاستقبال سمو الأمير سعود والوزراء المفوضون للأمم العربية ورجال المفوضيات العربية وكبار رجال السراي.
Cairo's agricultural and industrial exhibition sees King Farouk making one of his rare appearances before the newsreel cameras. Accompanying the king are his sisters Fawzia and Faiza, world-renowned beauties. The fair marks Princess Fawzia's first public appearance in Cairo since her divorce from the Shah of Persia and subsequent remarriage. Outcome of the show is that Egypt will shape her agriculture and industry on Western standards. The lovely Princess Fawzia, eldest sister of King Farouk and former wife of the Shah of Persia, arrives in Heliopolis to fetch the King of Egypt's new bride as troops line the streets. The religious service, which according to custom she did not attend, is over, and the beautiful young Queen Nariman leaves with Princess Fawzia in her diamond-studded wedding gown to join the king at the Abdin Palace for the second part of the ceremonial. Through the cheers of 500,000, while guns salute the occasion and aircraft fly overhead, Queen Nariman approaches the Abdin Palace, and 31-year-old King Farouk waits to welcome his new bride. For 17-year-old Queen Nariman, her fairy tale comes true on this, the 15th anniversary of King Farouk's succession to the ancient throne of Egypt.
ليا وليا يا بنيا يا ليلى البدوية ليا وليا يا بنيا يا ليلى البدوية غلي القمر بجعودك طبعا بدو يتبيا ليا وليا يا بنيا يا ليلى محلى غمزات عيونك محلى الكحل بشفونك.
From Cairo come these first authentic pictures of the bloodless coup by which the army took over control of Egypt. It was the end of the king's attempt to maintain power. Troops in the street were the first indication of the change to most people, until with the broadcasting station seized, it was announced that General Naguib, the commander-in-chief whom Farouk refused as war minister, had taken control, and the army were ordered to guard strategic points. The declared aim was to stop corruption. They struck at the top, and General Naguib shows the abdication papers signed by King Farouk in favor of his 7-month-old son. At the Ras El Tin Palace, the leader of the coup is with Ali Maha, the new premier who secured Farouk's signature. Meantime, from Alexandria, the royal yacht Marusa sails with the ex-king and the infant king for Capri.
وسمح لجماهير الشعب
To the ordinary Egyptian, the change is welcome.
and it seems that Mohammed Naguib is assured of support at home. What the change will mean to the rest of the world, we have yet to see. In the meantime, in the lovely island of Capri, the ex-king nurses the new King Fuad II as Queen Nariman watches. With the royal family are Farouk's 3 daughters by his former marriage, Fawzia, Ferial and Fadia. An ex-king dreams of former glories.
Farouk was only 16 when, on the death of his father, King Fuad I, in 1936, he left Britain, where he was educated, to return to Egypt. From his accession to the throne throughout a reign which has ended in abdication, his country has been in the grip of political unrest and intrigue. How much of it was the fault of the king, only history can assess. A son was born, Crown Prince Ahmed Fuad, for whom a regency council is now to act until he attains his majority at 18. Meanwhile, in the royal yacht, ex-King Farouk has gone into exile, while the future of Egypt and her relations with the West are questions still to be resolved.
In his haste to leave the country, Farouk was forced to leave behind a palace full of expensive treasures, purchased after a systematic looting of the Egyptian treasury while he was still in power. The new government promptly auctioned the priceless objects for whatever monies they would bring.
Kuba Palace in Cairo becomes the focal point for many of the world's leading collectors, for here the fabulous treasure accumulated by ex-King Farouk is up for auction. Plates and cups of solid gold are included in the dazzling display. This was a present from the Aga Khan. The Egyptian treasury will collect all the proceeds despite Farouk's threat to sue. A rich belt of solid gold which belonged to Cleopatra's brother Ptolemy is among the treasures due for the auctioneer's hammer. Princess Nariman and her mother, Madame Asila Sadek, prepare to leave Rome for Switzerland. They've a big pile of luggage with them on this flight from ex-King Farouk. Baby King Faoud, Egypt's 14-month-old sovereign, is not with the princess. He's still with father in a villa just outside Rome. Despite Farouk's denials that Nariman has sought a divorce, Italy's leading divorce lawyer later leaves for Switzerland. Farouk accuses Madame Sadek of influencing Nariman's decision to leave him. Looks like that old mother-in-law story all over again.